I want you to first of all be clear about the nature of Socratic questions, which I have mentioned some points in the invite.
Yes. I I have some questions.
Socratic question is possible by Socratic perception, or what I call referent perception and referent reality perception. Because all communications, all dialogues, all reports, all words are nothing but names, and all sentences are reports about reference and reference and reference only. All reports, whatsoever be the reports. So, from the referent perspective, where it is Upanishads or Vedanta, Tao or Zen or any such greater perspectives, they are all nothing but reports of some reference. But of course, the reference would vary in their expressions and responses and behaviors and ways of doings. As we all know, none of the real reference in the universe would talk. So human beings talk on behalf of them. Seers and the creative observers, original observers, looked at them, understood their nature and properties and characteristics, and they are the mouthpieces of the reference and their realities in the world. So it could be very subtle, very intangible, very deep, very high, very whatsoever. If there are some words available, you should be able to do that. But vis-a-vis me, of course, I do not understand the reference of algebra and calculus and mathematics. That to somebody like Nitya or Anu or Ramesh, who
Ramesh.
are all good in maths and all that, for them it should be easy. But except, as I told you, chemistry and mathematics and yeah, I think these are the only two subjects. Other than that, I can comprehend any other subjects in the whole possibility of human perception. So, because of just nothing but referent orientation, when you hear a report, you can see the referent. And by that, indirectly, you would develop the capacity, you would develop the powers of the engines of attention and conceptualization to see the referent when you come across. That's all. Reference you either come across straight, I mean the trees and the plants and the rocks or a machine or anything. And reference you can project or imagine or visualize from the reports. I mean languages, Nitya, that's all. All right. Just read out the nature of Socratic questions I have written in the invite. First one.
I'll have to open that, sir. Okay.
Hi Amaya, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine,
So,
Swami.
All
I'm
right.
doing good.
so the first one is about the ideas or concepts or descriptions that are missing in the parable or any theme, event, episode, entity, process, phenomenon, etc., or the reporting about missing reference or missing aspects of reference.
Yeah, all right. So now it is a straight clue about how to look for the missing details in the total report of the referend, reference in the parable of the master cook. Yeah. What all information or what all are missing there? Yeah, come on.
One question I had was um, the main Kyosen, the main master who the cook was working with, would have definitely known about his secret learnings. But
All right,
he
no,
let
no, wait. Do not combine clauses or units of perception. That itself, that alone is a unit of perception, Nitya. Do not
okay.
combine it with but, because, etc. That we will discuss later. First is what? That you understand that the Master Kyosan was aware of what was going on, right?
Uh,
About the hidden
yes, yes,
activities of
yes,
the cook.
yes.
All right. That is your referent perception or Socratic perception, accepted and quite possibly. But for the sake of the exercise, you have to identify by what clues. You have to relate it with the FIR now. That is very
Mm-hmm.
important. Can you say why that is important? Question changed. Question changed. Okay, by your referent perception, maybe by your other even intuition about a referent, you arrive at an observation or a conclusion or a statement about an event or an entity or a phenomenon, like Nitya has done now. But you have to also provide as much as possible, at least some clues, some evidence about to validate, to establish that statement. Why that is required? Why that evidence is required? Why you also have to identify on what basis you have this observation, on what evidence in the FIR, or the other missing linkages of the FIR. Either there be direct evidence or other indirect evidences in the FIR. Yes, come on. Or sorry,
Yes.
why it is required, first of all? Why you should provide evidence for your statements or your discoveries or your ideas? For you, is it required?
Not really, but
For the others, yeah, of
yes,
course.
yeah,
If
but
you
for
want to
others.
convey it to the others, and that is the main purpose. I mean, one of the main,
Yes.
of course, central purpose is for you.
So,
Secondary
the,
purpose is to make the other people convinced about your observation, your statement. Yeah,
mhm,
yeah, that is why it is required.
yes.
Clear?
So,
So
yes.
be aware whenever you make any out of the box, so-called out of the box observations, when the creative perceptions, new ideas, new concepts, try very patiently to give evidences, logics about that statement. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Now, come on. What is the evidence in the parable that the master was probably or was not probably? You say not probably, it doesn't make a sense. You say master was aware of this. What is your logic or what is the evidence? Either you say the evidence or you say the logic.
For such a master who's training people in the art of sportsmanship, he would have been very attentive to so much of details. And the cook training in the night without him noticing or without somebody, even the other students in the
Nitya,
monastery would have been.
Nitya, no,
Yes,
no,
yes.
and all is in normal conversation. When you are
Okay.
providing an important data, do not combine clauses, CLAUSES. You make statement number one. That is,
Yeah.
a highly competent master would be
Attentive to details,
attentive to.
attentive to, yeah.
All right, that was point number one. So, will you be able to remember the subsequent points? What is the next point? We wanted to add it by and.
And the environment where all his other students are also learning the swordsmanship. So, if not the master, somebody else would have noticed or become aware of the cook's training, and definitely he would have been informed. And the master didn't. Yeah, I mean, there's no
No,
point in
wait.
the story saying that.
Go very
Um,
slow and be aware of what you are talking, what you are reporting. You are also reporting. Understand that. When you are
mhm.
reading somebody else's report, I mean ideas, you are also reporting. You should also be equally logically impeccable. What is the connection between somebody else who would notice? You are talking about the point of uh, Master Samurai was aware because he is
Yes.
very attentive. That is a clause number one that we will discuss later. Point number
Mm-hmm.
two, you are saying somebody else would have noticed, the disciples would have noticed. In which way that is correlated to the observation that the master was aware. You got what I am talking? Your point of observation is what? The master was aware of the
Yes.
cook's activities, hidden activities.
Mm-hmm.
The logic is number one, he is a great master. That we will
Yeah.
discuss later. Point number
Okay.
two, you say what the disciples would have noticed, some others would have noticed, etc. What is the correlation of those two reports about what your main conclusion is?
Yeah, there is none, sir.
But that's okay. That is another point. Now, can you say why you wanted to say that about other people observing? Is
Because
there
they are
any?
also
Yeah.
students of sportsmanship.
So therefore,
Therefore,
oh, you mean
then
they did not notice,
I
but
mean
he would have noticed.
they also could have noticed, like the people who are training
No,
in
no,
the
that
art
is
of sportsmanship, they
that could
may
no, no,
they they are also
not
probably
acceptable,
very
not
attentive.
acceptable, not acceptable.
Okay.
They also could have noticed anyway. They did not notice. That's all. Finished. They
Okay.
could have noticed. Then you can say many things. But there must be something in your reflection process that happened inside, by which you thought about other people. So, uh, I mean, the disciples also. What is that? What could be? This here I can ask, what could be that? What could be that hidden unconscious logic inside you by which you talked about the other people? Is it a careless statement or was it
No,
then?
it's just I was just imagining if I'm a cook in a monastery surrounded by so many people, just like a hostel or some places like that. And in the night, if you're doing something, it's there are many times that people would be awake or their consciousness is not fully asleep when you are doing things. So it comes from living in a
No,
big
no, no, no,
family
no,
as
no,
well
no,
as in
no,
a
no, no,
hostel.
no, 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 no. That's all normal level of thought process. This is what
Okay.
happened in normal interpersonal communication, interpersonal conversation, interpersonal dialoguing. Totally unrelated, non-correlated ideas should be very easily brought in by using and therefore and so and all that, which the other person never intended, which would lead to interpersonal conflicts. You notice very serious conversations. Unknowingly, people would bring in irrelevant, non-correlated linkages to talk about a main point because they are justified because they make a main point. And on behalf of the that having made that main point, they would just bring in other irrelevant linkages, and the opponent or the listener cannot will be in a position of confusion because there is a good point, and in with the good point, some other points are coming. It is like newspapers. They are putting sensational news, needless news to corrupt the minds of the audience. But newspapers are required because they give some significant details also. It is like a necessary evil. So you should never do this and you should not allow other people also to continue. They may say that you are interrupting. No, no, no.
Yeah.
It is not interruption because they are saying a principal clause and then going into subordinate clauses which are irrelevant.
Yes, sir.
Hmm. But still, it is a matter of wonder for every one of you to reflect upon. How could Nitya talk about other people or other disciples noticing it? In the context of the observation that the master samurai must have been aware about the cook's hidden clandestine activities because of his possible high sensitivity with the entire details of the environment. She is talking about the master samurai and his sensitivity. In between, she has brought in other people noticing it. Get the point, Vinay? Everybody. I am Nitya also.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other point? This you always remember. That's why you follow referent reality perception or referent perception. The referent Nitya points out is what? The competency or the great engine sharpness of the master samurai to be aware of everything going around in, let us say, 50-meter radius. Thereby, he must have been aware of what was going on. That is the point. In the circumference of that point, in which way other people noticing it or not becomes important. Then actually it is undermining the importance of the observation. Undermining the importance of what she made about the master samurai. That that idea that other disciples also could observe, that is an observation or an FIR evidence for what? Can you say? Is the question clear? We have slipped away to 2-3 gears of question. What Nitya said as other people, other disciples becoming aware of Cook's activity, that's what she mentioned, okay? That could be an evidence for something else. What is that?
That the trainee samurais are also equally trained to be observant and sharp in their observation.
Okay, one, two. More critical to the context.
The cook
That
was extremely competent.
Yeah, that is all. That logic is required to prove the power of the cook only. If Nitya wanted to talk about the competency levels or the mysterious power of the cook, other people not noticing it, forget about other people. For example, Nitya, you just cannot use the word other people in the context. There is no other people in the monastery,
Only the disciples.
only the disciples.
Oh,
So, disciples noticing, if of course, noticing or not noticing, that is also everything becomes an evidence when Socratic perception of a referent, okay, is directly indicating the mysterious power of the cook only.
yes.
It has nothing to do with Master Samurai. All right, okay. So, any other points in this focus?
So the question was, but let him be. The master samurai let the cook be training like that.
All right, point number 2, right?
Yes.
Point number 1, what was point number 1?
He was aware.
Why are you taking you do that is also one very important thing for you to be a very powerful what you call speaker. I mean trainer, master, mentor, orator.
Mm,
You must remember every point which you said, not necessarily verbatim. And you must recollect every point made by everybody in the audience, not necessarily verbatim. So point number 1 was that the master samurai was aware of the activities of the cook.
yes.
point number 2 is having been aware of that, he really permitted or he really allowed or he turned a blind eye or he actually allowed him to continue to do that. That's all, right? Point number 2.
Yes.
Any more? Oh, you are doing it now. Okay, you didn't get time. All right. Okay. Okay. First point. At least you give evidence for to substantiate the first point. Okay. The audience is accepting, but one of the audience is asking. Okay, what is the evidence? On what basis you say that? Come on.
One thing is, when the cook was leaving the monastery, the master didn't ask any question related to his training. It's actually,
Why should he ask?
uh, I mean, he can possibly ask what you are doing or what. I'm not sure, sir. But
No,
if you
by the
are
way,
aware of if you are aware of something, it's possible that you will ask something about that.
yeah, you only said that he did not ask. So he
Yeah,
did
he
not
didn't.
ask.
No, he didn't ask because he was
That
aware
means
of.
it is an evidence contrary to what you said.
Hmm.
You get the point, Nitya. See,
Yes,
do
sir.
not look at you. Be
Hmm.
detached. This all can be told. These are all opportunities for you to exercise your sense of detachment. Nitya, see the contradiction. From a
Yes.
brilliant person like you, this contradiction has happened. What you said first is contradicted by your own another idea. That if he was aware of it, he would have asked. Then he did not ask. That means he was not aware. That's what you are telling. You are
Hmm.
giving evidence for contradicting your own first observation. How you noticed it? Okay, keep it in your mind. Now, when you listen to other people talk, you
Yes.
can really understand so many contradictions like this. And he gets away with some wonderful talk and he leaves the stage. Nitya, why the world is not benefiting from out of the talks of the priests and the clerics and all those wonderful speakers is precisely because they unknowingly provide clues to disbelieve what they said.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Either they would give it or their other life evidences give clues to the audience that this guy is just talking empty words. He wouldn't do what you say. That is,
Absolutely.
of course, most of the cases.
Yes.
All right. Coming back, you are given a chance once again. You have an observation, but there are some possible evidences there. What is that evidence? This is not evidence. Okay. All right. Keep on
Master
thinking.
was
Yeah.
Master was waiting for the cook when he came back.
You are giving an
Okay.
evidence for. You are giving an evidence for what? That the master was aware of what the cook was doing, right?
Yes.
No, no, no. This is not an evidence. This is not a valid evidence. This is not a sustainable evidence. If you think about that, there could be various other reason. Anybody else? If you accept the observation of Nitya, at least tentatively, can anybody else give an evidence that the master was aware of probably what was going on with the cook?
The master did not dismiss the cook when he confessed.
When he?
Confessed that.
When he?
Yeah, confessed.
Oh, exactly. He was very cool. Let us say, we are not really sure, but the FIR does not give even a trace of evidence that the master retorted or asked him any questions, say, what did you do or anything. He just gave him the clue. In connection with that, in connection with that, Anu, can you give some supportive evidence, subsidiary evidence?
He provided a clue so as to what he could do further.
Beautiful, exactly. The master was sure that he could nevertheless perhaps face him and asked him, take your cooking gears also. Oh, that also means what? You must go in the complete uniform, complete costumes or complete paraphernalia of devil. Take the cooking equipment also. That is the much more valid evidence, Anu, which is present in the affair. Nitya, one more thing. When you search for evidences, you have to have a clear, open mind. This is an instruction given to investigating officers also. Because in actual criminal investigation, they are being normal human beings, they are likely to be biased by the nature of evidences. And a good criminal, a murderer would sometimes leave consciously some evidences to mislead the investigation.
Yes.
So you should be completely open, much, much, much beyond the boundaries. Had you gone to the entire boundaries of the parable, you would have noticed it. Like one of your maidservants steals some money and she left, you are aware, you did not ask them question, and after 5 months she comes back and returns that money. Sorry ma'am, I have taken it. Okay, never mind, give it me. That is possible because you are aware of that. You are talking about the points mentioned by Anuradha, right? Wait, all right, okay. That's a good perspective, but you have to look at the background of the master samurai. He was only a master samurai. He was not an enlightened Zen master. He was a genius in the art of sword only. He was not. You are perhaps right if you are discussing about a so-called Zen master. Zen mind is that mind, yeah, forgiving everything. And you have to understand the spirit of the samurai. Spirit of the samurai is if you see an injustice, just react and kill. That's all. That is what the samurai spirit. They live. Sorry to say, like the average Muslims are living for religion. Samurais are living for sword fight. All right. Yeah. Okay. So you have some critical insights possible here, Nitya. All right. About your own thought process as well as other people's reporting, as well as how to look for evidences much beyond the boundaries. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Anything else? Keep on looking. So, who else have some questions? By the way, you're all working people. You did not get time. What I thought is, having read that, it might run through your mind occasionally. Did it run through your mind occasionally?
Yes, Master
Yes,
one.
sir.
All right.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right, that is more important, no doubt about that.
Always, always.
That is actually the really important consequence I anticipate that must be there in undergoing this kind of a complicated interaction. That's all. Okay, arriving at a response, arriving at the correct response and all is not that important. Okay, all right, Nitya.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all
I
right,
had
Mina.
too many questions, but that's more
Wait.
for
What I have?
I had quite a few questions, but
Then come on.
that's more directed to myself. It is not related to the parable itself, but reading the parable, I had questions for myself.
That's also wonderful. And in fact, that
Yes,
is the purpose.
yeah.
That's
So
what
for
I just mentioned right now.
yeah.
That is of course the purpose.
So if
This
I can read
parabolic,
some of,
this parabolic analysis is only vehicle to reach that, Nitya.
yes, sir.
That's all, no
So
doubt. All right, Minashi, you are about to say something.
Yeah, as I was reading this parable, I was always curious about what would have been the background of the cook that made him so daring and so capable of learning only by observation and without direct training. Because an ordinary person cannot do so.
Yeah, that is obvious. Do not give that logic. Okay, this is also very important. Okay. You do not compare Albert Einstein with some student in the class, Meenakshi.
Hmm.
When you
Hmm.
talk about Albert Einstein, you need to talk only about that.
Hmm.
When you're talking about jet flight, you don't have to talk about driving a race car. So you don't have to say that statement. All right. Okay. So what you wondered about his background factors by which he became so competent.
Yes.
But in fact, we had a tip of this discussion in some sessions back. Anybody remembers?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is that? Who said yeah?
Ame.
Ameya.
When was that?
I don't remember when it was. It was at least 2, 3 sessions back,
Uh,
and we discussed on some on different questions on samurai. I
uh,
mean, on the samurai and on the cook
uh.
and on shogun, and even Ashwati made a very good point. I remember.
What was that?
I mean, I remember she made a
All right.
good point. I don't remember the
Yeah.
point.
Anyway,
But
anybody else remember the precise context when we talked about how come this cook was so competent?
It was, I think, when Tintuji asked
Of
about.
course, wonderful. I appreciate it, Radha. Beautiful, exactly. When Tintin asked a question, first I said it is an ordinary question. But even for ordinary questions, there could be wonderful interpretations possible. That's what I showed then. And subsequently, we explained, Minashi, that his decades of doing mysterious activity of Shanoyu made him that sharp and sensitive to the details of the environment as well as to the details of his own body movements. That's all. But that is not a Socratic question, Minashi. It is a kind of an obvious question. Not an obvious question, but of course it is a reasonably uh, a good question. But that's not a Socratic question. That's what I told at that time to Tintin. Such a question is not relevant. But of course it can be asked. And then I went on explaining for about 40 minutes how come the cook became so wonderful. And then I also said one of the objectives or one of the anticipated outcomes of this program is that when we do this complex exercises at this unique time of the night, when the right brain activities are very, very dominant, you are very likely, not very likely, you will develop mysterious competences once the tipping point is over. Tipping point meaning till 99 degree the water is getting heated. The last 1 degree makes it boiling. All right. Last 1 degree is when you stop the program. All right. Yeah. Meenakshi, that is not a Socratic question. Come on. Do you have any other question? That you said you have been wondering from the very beginning. Right now, I suppose you didn't get time to reflect upon Socratic questions in the parable, right? All right, that's okay. Anybody else? All right. So missing linkages. So what more is missing? What more? That is just one of the clues, possibly suggestible, for asking Socratic questions. All right. Yeah.
Sir,
Uh,
let me attempt this.
yeah.
Um, the
Don't
cook,
feel embarrassed to that. Be
yeah,
ready
yeah,
to. Even now,
yeah,
you're all sitting there with some kind of an educated ego. Be ready to make mistakes.
yeah.
That is one thing I appreciate with Meenakshi. She will talk what she wants to talk. Talk.
Sir, he was living in a very different place where nobody knows him. And after challenging Shogun, he had 14 days.
Hmm.
Why didn't he run away if he knew that he's going to be like he returned as a wounded warrior? So there was a possibility for him to run away, but he didn't do that.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. It is not exactly a Socratic question, but it's a good question. It's a good analytic question. It's a good analytic question, analytical question which have the mental process of human being. So this you have to answer from your own analysis of the human mind. Can anybody try? Or can you try first of all? The question, can you, by the way, Nitya, once again clearly define your question? Define meaning, make it in most appropriate sentence.
The cook was in a place where
You are thinking
he,
too
he would
unnecessarily complex.
he, he wouldn't have been identified, or he was a noble he was a
No, no,
he
no,
was
no, 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 no. Why do you go to
samurai.
that background? The question is very clear, Nitya.
Why didn't he run away?
Yeah, that's all. When he was given a chance to escape,
Yeah.
or because that you can say, that you can say. After challenging the shogun by
And
the
knowing the
response of the
gravity.
audience, he
Yes,
became very clear that this was shogun, the
yes,
owner of the lightning rose. Then why he did not go somewhere abscond himself? Then and then instead of that, why did he go to the monastery? That's the question, right?
yes.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. Having analyzed this much about mind, having a mind of your own, why not? Why don't you try an answer? Why don't you try an explanation for this? It is not an answer, it is an explanation required. Is that clear? Yeah.
Hmm.
Vinay?
Sir,
Yeah. I was,
sir,
you
he
see,
complete.
even before Vinay was about to say, I was almost sure that Vinay was going to answer.
Sir,
Hmm.
he absolutely became one of the samurai, or he has
No,
the
don't say
spirit of.
or. Oh,
Oh no,
Vinay,
no,
just now I
that's it, sir.
clarified. No or.
Yes, yes. Sorry, no
That's the
clauses.
next
Yeah,
sentence. Yeah.
yeah.
Now, come on.
He completely absorbed the spirit of a samurai.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay. That answers. In our group, that's an answer.
Hmm.
All right. Okay. Any other answer? And therefore, all right. Why don't you complete it? Therefore, okay.
Therefore,
By the way,
he must have.
still, wait. Still, Nitya, being a questioner or in the discussion, she can ask you. Okay. He understood the spirit of samurai, but here there is a invitation to death. So let me abscond. But you have the answer. Spirit of the samurai will never allow that. Yes, agreed. It is a tradition. There is all evidences, historical evidences. All right. Oh, that is why. Any other evidence? Any other answer? Any other explanation possible?
So second point,
Huh.
he is a master by himself. Before
Okay.
also,
Okay.
The realization came after Shogun
No, no, no,
called
no,
him.
no, 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 no. You cannot talk that. Now the explanation is at the point. You have to see it like in a film. That you know subsequently. You know the case. This also Vinay and everybody very important. You see, we are always, almost all the time, uh, we come to know about something after it has happened. It is rather difficult to know something as it is happening because there is no completion happened. Okay, so now you have the complete case study. So that's why you bring in the context of finally Shogun make. No, 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 that's not applicable. Now, anyway, what you were about to say?
He was a master by himself before also,
Oh,
at the
okay, okay.
time of challenging Shogun. So he has to complete that duel.
That
Since
also
he,
that of course varied, but that can be debated by somebody else. Okay, he was a master. It is more or less the same as it is a different master in something else. That means the master's mindset he had. What point number which you are mentioning? And next, before that, you mentioned he had the spirit of the samurai. But regardless of these 2 points, still what Nitya said was not impossible. Any other solid reason?
Because
Any other
only the
much
Sir,
more
master could
sir,
beautiful? Any other much more brilliant reason?
sir,
Yeah.
only the master could save him.
From
Master
what?
samurai could save
Saving him
from
from what?
from death.
Wait. But if he absconded himself, then he is saving.
Can I try?
Yeah, why not?
His self-respect would not allow him a life of ignominy if he hides somewhere.
What is the evidence of his self-respect? Mastery in sword spirit. Spirit of samurai. We can more or less safely conclude.
Yeah.
He was a master, whether master or not. He had done 2 decades of Shanoyu. Vinay had a point. But Vinay made a mistake in mastery certified by Shogun because only a master could do Shanoyu. Others would be cooking tea. You understand? Shanoyu itself refers to meditative cooking of a cup of tea. I told you this.
Yes.
So that answer is valid, Vinay. But the point is, you brought in an irrelevant context there.
understood, sir.
That's it. All right, Meenakshi, what are you telling? What is the evidence that he had that self-respect and thereby there is no evidence, I think, in the affair that he had great self-respect. On the contrary, uh, uh, there could be somebody else saying that if he had that kind of a self-respect, he would not have done that clandestine activity uh, and so on and so forth. But that's okay. But in the
Uh,
normal logic, that is acceptable. But there is no evidence in the FIR that he had such a great self-respect. That's why he came back. That's not a sustainable logic.
could we say that he came back because he needed a solution to solving that problem, and that's why he came? Otherwise, he could have run away, as Nitya
Okay,
suggested.
what was the problem?
That he has a battle where he's likely to die, and he has to save himself. There is a possibility of death, and yet he wants to win it. He doesn't want to die. He's mortified, he's scared, but still he wants to give it one last chance, and that's why he came back to the master.
No.
His,
There is no evidence. No evidence. No evidence.
his
sir,
desire had been
His
sir, Cook
desire.
might have,
his desire for fame and recognition and to become a master swordsman because of that, that desire had finished.
Hmm.
It was the death of his desire that made him go back to
Okay.
the
Wait.
monastery.
What?
Ah.
I see. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. That's a good point. Now all that ambitious plan is thrown
Gone.
away.
Finished.
Okay, that's a very creative perception. Yes. Now
Hmm.
let me go back and seek asylum with my master, with whom I have been at least for 20 years. I say 20 years, approximately, at least. Why? At least 20 years in the monastery. Why?
Sir, that is
Huh.
one of the point which
One.
I had, sir, which is the age of the cook, age of the shogun, and what is the time period.
Yeah,
So
good.
in,
All right. Oh, come on.
Hmm.
it is related to the age of the uh, so in terms of mm, something related with age, sir.
What is related to age? He's coming back.
Coming back the 20 years
Well,
you were
don't ask me, Ramesh. You make your conclusion. Yeah. His age, approximately how old he would be?
so approximately it's like so around uh, he should be in his late 30s or yeah late 30s. Sure.
Late 30s meaning close to 40.
Hmm.
Yeah, very likely. Why? That means close to 40 at the time of this Shogun interface and coming back. Okay?
Hmm.
Yes.
Not Shogun fight. Why approximately 40? Rather, I said 20. Yeah. Why?
Yeah.
What is the logic? What is the possibility?
So that time period that he is taking for learning.
Exactly. One, two.
To learn Shanoyu also takes long time.
No. Shanoyu, he was already a master. He
Yeah,
must
for
have
that
been
also
exposed. He must have been exposed and he was reasonably good at it. Okay. He was reasonably good at it. Let us say by about 23, 24, he joined the monastery. All right. Okay. Let us say 20. Then what about the remaining 10? Or 10 or 5?
He has traveled multiple places. He has gone to multiple places. Then finally he went to uh, the yeah. So he that traveling time we don't know since
But
that.
which travel you are referring to?
So he had traveled from the temple to the monastery. From then, in between, he had traveled to multiple locations to fight different uh, samurais. And that traveling time is where uh,
Traveling time is maybe much less, maybe 3 days or 4 days. Okay. But because after all, it is the ancient province. Much more than that, Ramesh. You have to see. It is not that you just like that go around and fix another duel with a samurai. There must be at least a gap of 6 months, or at least 3 months.
hmm,
Okay, but we will come to that later. At least 6 months must have been there, and he made at least how many? About 15, 16 duels, right? Any
there,
data?
there is no data, sir, but he has done many.
All
That is
right.
what. Hmm.
There is no number mentioned in the affair, right? All right. Okay. Let us say at least six. That
Hmm.
means that alone comes to around close to 2 years. Then what is the remaining time? How do you spend the remaining time? In the monastery. See the referent. Referent here is, for example, when a script or when a story, so-called story or a film script is given, the film director is seeing the entire sequence as it is happening. That is the referent perception for a script. More or less the same is here also. It is not. Reports about an object or a situation. There's a whole story. So if you see the continuity of reference that happened in that possibly happened in the whole affair of the parable, okay, approximately 10 years to master the art of sword. Hmm? Then about, as we said now, that fight, maybe 2 to 2.5 years for going around and proving himself and getting himself convinced about his competency. So 30. What about the remaining 5 years? What happened? What was happening? How do you explain the remaining 5 years? How do you explain meaning? What was apparently happening? This is a Socratic question only.
So that the decision of returning back to the returning back to Kyozen, that is not an immediate decision. So he would have reflected on that for multiple times. Then the decision of coming back, maybe like
No,
2 years.
that we will discuss later. Now the question is about the time duration of the cook's life in the monastery. Life in the monastery meaning, since his joining the monastery, he left the monastery approximately after at least 20 years. At least 10 years for mastering the art of the sword, at least 3 years for practice, 13 years. What about the remaining 5 or 7 years?
He was working as a cook.
That's very simple, yeah. So also something else happened during that time. What is that, Anratha?
Kyosen retired and he started accepting young disciples.
Yeah, that was going on. Then 1, 2. What all things were apparently happening in the monastery during that 5 years?
As a cook,
No, not as a cook. What was happening in the monastery?
Kyosen was being invited by the emperor.
Correct. Emperor visited. And by this only he harbored, he got gradually one night. It is not that he just like that. One night he occurred to him, yeah, why not? Then it is not that the next day onwards he will just start observing and all that. Okay, it took at least 5 years for him to finally decide, okay, let me learn like this. There are so many risks involved. It requires that much of time to be inspired. In between, he witnessed the visit, he being invited to the, what you call, emperor. Perhaps it must have happened before. But definitely the emperor visited that place during his time, evidenced by the clues in the FIR. So all this in cumulative effect only finally gave him that sheer power to do that dangerous, risky act of learning it in hiding. Do you see? At least can you imagine a thief getting into the centralmost room of the in a house of a police circle inspector when a wedding preparation was going on? Even that requires tremendous confidence and risk and experiencing. So before that, he had years of experience in stealing and entering into places. It is not that the very first time that thief, I don't know whether I told you that my last interview. It is not that it was his first attempt, definitely not. So you have to definitely you have to reach these levels of creative perception of the referent and details of the referent realities of whatever document or situations you come across. And this is essential only if you, of course, this will be essential for your own evolution. That may automatically happen, but this will be essential for you to become a leader, to become a guide, to become a mentor, to become a philosopher. Not this, but the resultant experience of your brain, I mean your mind and your intellect and your spirit. So that 20 years. Now coming back, where were we? We were still at the observation of Nitya, right? Second observation, why he did second observation of Nitya, rather the doubt of Nitya, rather the wondering of Nitya, why this cook did not abscond himself,
So can I
instead
have
went back to the master. Yeah, yeah,
so
right, yeah.
so from the FIR it is said that he went back to Khoisan to plead rejoining him as a cook.
Agreed.
So
That is a okay,
yes, so it is his absconding.
okay. That is a very beautiful interpretation. But that was a risk, nevertheless, because uh, because there is no time in my making you answer all these questions. It will take a lot of time. I am sure every one of you can discover now or little later, 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes later, the answer. Because
He had openly challenged Keshogan.
Vinay, he had left the master saying that he was to go to live like a peasant. Okay, okay. Now, for his integrity, the master may ask him what happened, etc. Then he had to tell him all this. He had to confess all that happened. So that risk is there. So to avoid on one side, it is called in psychology called avoidance conflict. Remember, Andratha, both the things are to be avoided. On one side, there is a deadly slogan. On the other side, he was not really he. Now, Vinay, we know now that the master had forgiven him. You look at the situation just before that. The master was a samurai itself is a ferocious concept. He was a master samurai, I mean Kyosan, and when he goes back, he had to tell him what he all did. Perhaps there may be death there by the sword of the master samurai. So both these things should be avoided. That is implied in the doubt of Nitya. Nitya did not say this, but uh, Nitya talked about only one of the threats. Going back to the monastery also is equally threatening. Now we know that nothing happened, but he does not know till that point. Okay? In this junction, I am reminded of a joke. You know, two thieves, a master thief and an apprentice thief. So master thief, so they plan to break into a reasonably rich man's house, and they decide to climb the huge wall, because when you go to seal, you just cannot enter through the main gate. And the master, I mean the competent guy, just climbed the what you call wall and went down. And when the other guy was about to climb the wall, he heard dogs, ferocious barking of the dogs, and apparently running towards that location. That would be the normal doubt of a thief. Then he told, "Hey, master, big dogs are barking dogs, and they are coming. Will we be in danger?" Then the master thief, I mean, I'm scared to use the word master thief. Okay, the expert thief said, "You don't worry, barking dogs do not bite." Then he said, "Yes, sir, that we know, but do the dogs know?"
Right.
Similarly, we know the complete affair, but the situation under observation has reached only up till, let us say, the cook comes back after that threatening experience, and he was walking, and Nitya's wondering is why he did not choose to go somewhere else, because he had already told the master that he was going. That itself is a sufficient reason that he would be rather ineligible to go back there. It is not like normal houses and all that, Yeah, any other reason? Any other? But what Nitya said now is a very, very deeper level, deeper layer of idea. A similar deeper layer of idea is more correlated to the event of the cook going back to the monastery. What is that? Or is there anything much more deeper? Much more? Or is there anything different? Any other reason?
The cook had openly challenged Shogun.
Huh.
So there are a lot of people who have already seen him and they know him. So in case he runs away, the probability of him being identified later on is high.
Okay, good point. Good point. All right.
Uh,
Wait, wait. And that's a very good. That's also a good point. In fact, perhaps again there's a crowd psychology. Again, I am reminded of an event discussed in one of the books in psychology. One young guy climbed on top of a huge, tall building and said he was going to jump out, jump down, jump down, jump down for some reason. And all the people gathered in the ground, and some of them shouted, "Do not jump," etc., etc., etc. And he was not willing to get away from that place. And finally, somebody climbed by that time, and they persuaded him to go back. And then he was almost about to resign from that act of jumping. Now the people are all telling, "Jump, jump, jump," because nevertheless, they were all waiting to see him jumping. Similarly, it is a remarkable moment in the location that someone challenged Shogun,
yes.
and the audience every one of them must have been thrilled. And by the normal equation, one person would talk something to five people. That is a normal calculation, statistical mean. So let us say there must have been at least 100 people. So 500 people. Then again, 500 of them, again, if you apply that equation 1 to 5, okay, let us say, but not that much possible in the ancient times, but still, at least 1,000 people are eagerly waiting for the fight to happen. And if this guy does not do, as you see in some of the Malayalam films, they will not pull him and carry him and throw him into the arena. That's a good point, Anuradha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
He has, sir, if we go by the title of this parable, it says managing identity crisis.
Yeah.
So the cook has realized his true identity
Okay.
and he surrendered to that. So that enabled him to go back and confess because he
That's
hasn't
no,
harbored any more other interests. So he's sure of what he is, and that triggered him to go back and confess.
That's almost a good logic, but your this statement is supported by your internal knowledge that finally his identity was clear. That happened only at the end, actually. That level of strongness or strength or firmness of conviction happened only at the end, in the last point. But nevertheless, that's a good point.
So the cook returned to the monastery in expectation that if he confessed to the master samurai, he may give some final tips, some final clues to fight with the shogun, and so that he can win the battle, win the duel with the shogun.
It's a good point, but you have to explain and interpret it.
As Cook has learned a lot to become a sword player, and he has almost most of them he has won most of the battles or most of the duels of the sword play.
Yeah.
So he was even in conflict that given some there may be some situations or where he can win the battle with the shogun also, and he
You
might
have to
have
have a
been
little
some
more
conflict.
stronger, solid interpretation. That's okay. You're already touching through the solidity of interpretation, Naveen, but you're not reporting it. That's how this is called conceptualization. Normally, in the literature of creativity, we call creative conceptualization. That is, you have a mental impression or a perception or an observation or an idea, some rudiments of that. How do you most efficiently package that? If you do not do it, it will become unsustainable, or it
Okay.
will lose its impact, or it is not a justice because you go near a truth and you don't see the fullness of it. No? Once
Okay.
again, you reflect upon whatever you have observed and come out with a better interpretation or logic, Naveen.
Yes, sir. Reflecting
Yeah,
will take time. Yeah.
yeah. But in others, now, Naveen, you are implying that the cook really wanted to do the duel. Hmm?
Yeah. Yeah. That is the point, sir. Yeah.
Point number two, he realized the risk involved because the opponent is so good.
Yeah.
All right. Third, you mean to say that determined to go back after 14 days, he came back to the master. He is the
Samurai. Yeah.
master trainer. Shogun is not a trainer.
No, sir.
So the greatest master to get further clues on how to win the fight, right?
Right. Yes, sir.
Very good point. But you have to say like that.
Okay. Yes, sir. That is the point.
That is a beautiful point. And he must have conveyed an energy of that. He may not have said it because at that level expressions convey. You know, at master's level expressions convey, not dialogues. It is quite
Yeah.
possible that the expressions of the cook conveyed this fact to the master. What is the evidence of that? Is the question clear?
So can I have that question?
No, question once again.
Yes, sir.
You want to get the question?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That is, what Naveen identified is quite possibly correct or correct. Forget about correct and correct. It's a much more brilliant logic that the cook actually internally had decided to go for the duel. I mean the fight, and he was absolutely sure that he cannot win Shogun. And anyway, the greatest master trainer, master coach is there, Kyosan. Let me go to him to get any clues so that I can at least make a reasonable fight with Shogun.
Fight. Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes.
and this is quite possible. In the FIR, there is no evidence that the cook told this aspect to the master. But very possibly his expressions, rather the expressions, you understand the expressions. You see, you tell a girl that I love you. She may not say anything, but her expressions may convey an agreement. You get the point. Similarly, the expressions of the cook must have conveyed what Naveen pointed out to the master. Quite possibly. There is an evidence that the cook conveyed this to the master. In the FIR, what is that?
He could not hide his
Isn't that
tears of guilt.
Andretha, in which way that guilt and this is connected? Okay, that is the evidence. That is possible. There are some words about that in the FIR. Question is, the point under observation here is, Andretha, that the cook must have definitely expressed the concern that he would like to go back and fight Shogun. And there is an evidence in the parable which can be interpreted to support that. What is that evidence?
the master's answer?
Exactly. What?
The spirit of the
Of course.
sword does
Yeah.
not die.
Yes, sir. Yeah. That is the point. Yeah.
Exactly. This I thought Anuradha would find out because Anuradha, yeah, all right, exactly. Otherwise, why should he say that? Go and get the spirit of the sword. That's what he said.
Yes.
And here the discussion on that point of Nitya stopped, having arrived at a much more deeper interpretation, supported beautifully by a very beautiful dialogue in the entire parable.
Sir,
Good.
I have a doubt, sir.
Yeah.
So your question was what expression of the cook it was not an expression of the cook, it was the expression of the master samurai.
No,
No, that
expression. No. The expression meaning, that's why I gave the example. You tell somebody I love you, and that person does not say, I too love you. No. Rather, the expression means that overall appearance of that person says, yeah, yes, I too are ready. I'm ready. Of course, as you said, and also implied in the FIR, that he definitely had to confess all those things. That he had done. But at the same time, he must have also conveyed, maybe even by dialogue. That dialogue is not in the affair, but it is quite possible that even by a dialogue or by some implications, he must have conveyed to the master that he was ready to go back and fight. And that cannot be ruled out. That's why the master said the spirit of the sword does not die. That means you go and meditate on that further. That's all.
And he practiced
Uh,
further also.
and also that dialogue is much more meaningful. You came back to me. Of course, you did not. You did not develop that final conviction from the mouth of the master that you have mastered the art of sword, because you learned it secretly. So you have come here, and because you are afraid of your death, so you may
Yeah.
be afraid of death. That also you must have mentioned possibly. That's why the master said the spirit of the sword will never die. And if you are so much identified with the sword, which is a normal
Yes.
perspective in all things, a great guitarist does not find any difference between his hands and the guitar. That's why he can just throw the guitar and catch it and play the notes in the air without ever looking at the frets, because guitar has become a part of his body. So when the sword has become a part of your body, and if the spirit of the sword does not die, you will also not die. I mean, don't be worried about your death. Focus on that. Something like that. Now, why do we do this? Not to understand the samurai, not to understand the parable. But from this, naturally, I'm sure you would develop much more good logic in any of your interactions future, because you are unlikely to come across this kind of a complexity of interpretation in your life, no doubt about that. But still, we want to practice. That's all. Okay. Anything else? Nitya was about to say something. Something more? No. Any other Socratic observation? Ramesh, I think you said in between something else. What was that?
So I was talking of 2 points. So one
Uh,
is the time, and another is the distance. What is the distance the distance between the temple and yeah. So the different locations, distances. Is there any clue I was trying to find out and trying to question?
and by the way, okay, but why do you want to close about distances? In which way it will help you in understanding the details of the referent and referent realities of the parable? Don't worry about the nature of the question.
Yeah.
There is a reason why you are concerned about the distance. Can you say why?
Yes, sir. So it's basically I how far the cook is traveling. So the
For what? Which travel you refer to? Traveling for every one of the duels he had in between, right?
yeah, traveling for every one of the duels in
All
between.
right. Okay. Why are you concerned about that? Tell me.
And also another is because he's going having a duel and again coming back to the temple, the
Not temple,
monastery.
monastery.
Is coming back to the monastery.
Hmm.
So if it is in a very much nearby location, then the master will know about it, but it should be a bit more far away. So he should have taken a bit of break, about 3-4 days break, or he should have gone a bit more far, then did that fight, then he should have come back. So that,
Beautiful, beautiful. Definitely, definitely. So, definitely you mean to say that he must have traveled some distance, some reasonable distance for meeting another samurai for practicing his swordsmanship, right?
yes, yes.
Which he must have done at least 3-6 times. No doubt about that. At least 6 times, no doubt.
Hmm.
All right. Now, what is the relevance of what is the significance of your doubt there? Come on. It is significant, but can you say, or can you make some significance about it?
So that significance of that is to again to do with the age, sir, because every single time he is traveling and coming back, the time is running, his age is increasing, and as his maturity in the age increases, he is also getting confidence. But after some time, because of your age factor, your bodily, even though your mind is very strong, your bodily thing preparedness or bodily strength starts decreasing. So at that point, he wouldn't want to challenge the yeah, he wouldn't want to challenge. So when he is in that vigor of his body, best of his body, he would want to get this best challenge. So I was trying to correlate that
No, no, no.
distance.
That is not a correct observation. In fact, in martial arts, you become more and more competent as you grow old, and Shogun was much, much, much older.
Okay.
And secondly, it is not a long distance. It is not that you take 1 year for a journey. No, not at all. Maximum, I would say some 3 days. 1.5 days for going and 1.5 days for coming back. 1.5 days of that time, people would walk at least minimum 20 miles. Even now, people walk 30 kilometers. No, no, about 60 kilometers walking a day. Yeah, that's all. But, again, Ramesh, again, I want to give you some clues. When your logic of reflection identifies a certain uh, concept or a point of observation, if that is not apparently valid, there must be something more hiding behind by which only your unconscious process identified that. This
Yes,
is
sir.
what happened in the case of, this is what I wanted to tell Nitya also. There is a significance for that time. Can you say what is that?
Yes, sir. So when he is
What is
going
that?
from location, he is not going there fighting and coming back, sir.
Yeah.
He is going there. So he is establishing him
No,
some
no,
sort
no, no,
of.
no, no, no. You, Ramesh, you are mistaking. It is not about test. That is a final going.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think you are talking about the 5 or 6 in between practice duels.
That also is he has to find the practice duels, no? So for that also is some time takes it takes some
No,
time.
so you are talking about what distance? You are talking about the final distance of his final departure from the monastery and reaching another province. You are
That
talking about why are you concerned about that distance? In which way that is important?
mm,
Rather, this is what I said. Your concern for distance was a significant, what you call, linkage in the parable. What is that? So let us say average. I am telling you now. I am giving a clue. His 6 or 7 duels when he was in the monastery, which he undertook for his practice with a sword, he must have taken only 3 days on average for every trip. Why?
It would have been difficult to take leave.
Exactly. Wow, why you don't see that? He is a member of the regular member of the monastery doing Sanayu. If he was missing for a week, everybody will wonder why are you? You have to have a proper explanation. And I don't know whether Another knows. Shano is held only once in 14 days. It is. I told you about this. It's a huge. It's a kind of a huge meditative yaga. In fact, even the master samurai would come and sit there as an observer, and the entire disciples, they will all sit in round, and in the middle of that there will be the heart prepared, and it is a meditation not only for the cook and for the others. That's a collective meditative act, tea ceremony. It will not be done every day. Ideally, there is some calculation for that. Approximately, it will be somewhat like once in a fortnight. And there are some calculations. So somewhere in the middle, he gets a very opportune time. Otherwise, his absence will be noticed. So these are all possible when referent perception is there. You are all good thinkers. You are all thinking about what? That also you have to identify. When you are confronting with this question, repeated by me, where are you thinking? That means what is the locus of or the target of your thinking? Where are you looking for the answers? Precisely, you have to go to the referent. The answers are there and there and there only. If I would make a speculation, Anuradha was almost living in the monastery. So she could see every day. The disciples are there, they are doing all these things, daytime, nighttime, and the darkness and the huge monastery with so many rooms and all those things, and the role of the cook, his presence there, and he was not an ordinary guy, he was somewhat a respected guy because he was a Shanayu. Normally they are called master, but here we have a different sense of master, that's why. So if he is absent continuously, okay, if it was one day, it's okay. At least 3 days, no doubt. By the Ramesh, that point is very good because he cannot go and do this duel anywhere in the neighborhood of the monastery because it will come into the notice of the monastery and they will ask who is that guy and things like that. That point we will come. That anyway to come to tell you again the point which Nitya also mentioned. Actually, the cousin knew about this. Why? Why? What is the reason that Kausan might have known about this guy's episodes of going out? How could he know that?
He was repeatedly taking off.
No. He's going around and killing other samurais. The master definitely must have got an information. Why?
Yes.
He couldn't be. He was not beaten by anybody else. So news should have reached.
No. My question is not that. Question is, or the statement I made is somewhat connected to what Nitya said. The master must have been aware not only about his clandestine learning that we did not discuss. The master was aware that this particular cook was going around and challenging other samurais and killing them. He was aware.
Because
Was it possible?
death of the samurai and the leave the cook is taken as both matching.
Forget about leave because it is samurai community. If somebody in that community is killed by another samurai, it becomes a news.
News. Yeah.
And all such news would come to this master samurai. And he must have definitely realized it must be this guy. By the fact that, like Nitya said, he is aware of everything going around, and definitely he was aware that this guy also was missing there for 2 days, no doubt. And even otherwise, there will be somebody noticing all these things. One guy going around and challenging a samurai and killing it is a big issue. Everybody will notice with appreciation or wonder or whatever. Yeah, yes, Samaya, you were about to say something.
No, I was saying there is one more evidence in the same sentence that he would have been aware. That is, if he, in the samurai community, if a samurai gets killed, they will know which other samurai killed because that person who killed the samurai was also in the community, right? So this is not
Correct.
someone who's in the samurai community.
Exactly, yeah.
So that is also an evidence for the master.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. The disciples may not know that. Disciples are all disciples. They must be like the Gurukula system. They are all completely resident there.
Okay.
So the distance issue. Here the wonder is, Ramesh started some kind of a search about the distance. But the point he talked about the distance was something else. But that distance was a significant variable here. But that is vis-a-vis his fixing the duels and vis-a-vis taking leave of absence from the monastery. Now again I come back to Ramesh. You talked about the distance for what other reason? You said something. I don't. What was that precisely? You are talking about the final distance he traveled from the monastery to a distant province. Huh? No, not audible. Not audible. Yeah.
I was trying to correlate distance and time and age. So this was the thought process of getting to the point of distance.
Oh yeah. All right. Okay. And then that doesn't matter here.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
But that thought process is good, Ramesh. No doubt about that. But in the context of the FIR, like an investigating officer, you considered that point and then you rolled it out. Like in a brainstorming session. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other observation?
Sir,
Now, if nothing else, we will go back to the question of Ashwati. Anybody else? Yeah.
I have an.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What is your question, Amaya?
No. Nityaji can continue.
Yeah, Nitya.
it's just a observation, or it's already a question in the parable.
No, be clear. Don't go to the conversation mode.
Okay, sir.
Make every sentence complete.
What is the last act that you would want to do on this earth?
What is the question? What is the question? What is the observation?
Observation is this. I'm sure everybody will have different answers for that.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that? Why do you say this statement? Everybody will have a different answer.
Because I think Meenakshi said last session, she was mentioning, I'm wondering what Shanoyu I'll make. Something similar. So when I was reading
you have gone to the previous session. All right. Okay. Come on.
So in the context of this parable, I was also thinking, I mean, that is not only a question to that that cook. It's actually
yeah.
So it can be interpreted as a question to anyone.
All right. Okay.
So
therefore,
I just wanted to mention that I had a glimpse of my answer while doing this parable analysis.
What was that? Or you can reserve it.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
That's all you wanted to say about that.
Yes, sir. That's all. Yeah.
Okay, that is what you call an interpretation of this parable in the context of existence of people and life activities, etc., right?
Yes.
All right, that is why this parable, so that's why the beauty of parabolic analysis, Nitya, of course. This we discussed, and we also said that it is your choice to consider every act as a final act so that it becomes complete. In a final act, what is the difference? The tea cooked to be the same, but the attitude, the mindset, the focus of attention is firm and complete. That completeness of attention may not be required, let us say, in the daily cooking in your home, but you can have that a certain unique mindset. Why not? It is possible, and it is taken for granted because a cat is careful, alert every time. Even inside the very house, in the presence of the beloved master. It's all the time alert because that is its nature. And that should be the nature of human beings also. By not doing that, we are wasting, we are not driving an important engine. We are losing a great lot of engine capacities by taking activities for granted. Then which activity will require our greatest attention? When we want to have the finest attention for an activity, it will not be available. We will just apply some pressure, some pressure, some pressure. But it doesn't work. If a cat can be alert every moment, such a huge 90 billion hooded serpent of the brain, why it cannot be? Of course, obviously it is not required. But if you do that, as I told you, then your system is satisfied. The creature does not take anything for granted. But the person self, the duplicated self-image, is the so-called knowing only take everything for granted, Nitya. The creature does not. Actually, what is the guarantee? Evidenced by the other creatures. That is why. All right. So, what else? How else you interpret that? Now you have got an insight to interpret life or existence in its totality or in its partial elements. But any other interpretation would you like to make on that statement? Or any other Socratic questions?
The old bamboo sword, he had
The
made it
old does
with.
not old here does not mean an old and what you call useless one. It is the one he used in the past. That's all. All right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
That bamboo sword was made by him.
One. Okay. Obviously. Yeah.
Yes.
Why obviously?
Because it mentions it was made by him.
Oh, I see. Okay. Because it was mentioned by him. All right. Okay. Other than that, can you find a reason why he made it himself?
Because the time he made it, he was learning in secret.
He cannot approach somebody to
Yeah, he cannot not because of
make it.
secrecy actually. He cannot approach anybody else to do that. They will ask him questions. That is the care of a master thief. He would not leave any clue. What happens in some of the so-called murders and the theft and all that? For example, a very famous case I remember, the deity of one of the topmost temples in Kerala, what you call near Kottayam. Do you remember that place, Veena? Etmanur, yeah. Etmanur temple. That deity was stolen. No evidence. Finally, they discovered an iron bar in the nearby well, in the temple well. But other than that, it was inside the well. No clues, no forensic evidence, nothing. Then finally, they saw a piece, a notebook paper crumbled in among the what you call swept heap of materials. And then they took that notebook paper. Just imagine. Class notebook paper. Then by looking at the what you call what is that wrinkles of the paper, they identified that possibly that paper must have been used to what you call wrap the iron bar. And then they investigated on the basis of that paper. Then they found, and there was a name, something like that. Then they found that was a school notebook of a student somewhere near Kollam. They went there. Then they went to that shop where then they met that girl. She said she gave all the old notebooks to a nearby shop for wrapping things. They went to that shop and shop owner. Then they asked, did anyone buy an iron bar from here some few days back? Then he said, yes. And he remembered that person. Just imagine what a beautiful investigation. Anyway, so he made it himself definitely for that. By the way, actually, even when there's a clue in the FIR, You have to get further evidences to support that clue. In an FIR or in an actual case, a criminal would leave some clues consciously to mislead the investigation team. So you have to be sure about the clues even if it is in the FIR. You can ask 2-3 questions again. All right, Vasudhi? Yeah, coming back. Yeah. Oh, why? By the way, yeah, why did he choose to practice with the uh, bamboo sword? Yeah, that's a good. That's a Socratic question. Yeah, a Socratic question is mostly an irrelevant question. That's why Steve Jobs told the group of graduating students in the Stanford University in 2002, "Be foolish." Educated people develop a kind of an artificial ego. They don't want to be fools. They will ask only a sure question. All right. Why he practiced with the bamboo sword? What is if you interpret? Make your interpretation, Ashwini.
So the time he was practicing with it in the initial days, he had won all the duels.
All right. Good point. Yeah, that is a good point. Any other points?
Because he made it, he has a personal connection with it.
2, 3. Any other points?
Uh,
Any other little more deeper points?
In his samurai life, he or I'm sorry, the samurai spirit in him started with that sword.
Exactly. That was his most beloved possession at that time. And he must have been careful in handling it and keeping it. Because if someone see that, again there may be a doubt. You know, you can apply for a gun license if you have the required eligibility. And in order to get the gun, you have to really undergo a training program to shoot the gun. And one of the significant aspects of the training program is on how to keep the gun in safe custody. Otherwise, somebody else may take it and misuse it. And by which he himself may be in trouble. 30% of the training program is on the importance of keeping the gun safely and how to keep it safe when that will be taught in the training program. For example, similarly, that was his most, because that was his tool. Look at that, Asudi. See the beauty of it. He must have loved it. You know, when every other disciples had a real sword gradually to graduate into practice, he was still, that was the vehicle. Oh, what a wonder. You know, just imagine, Asudi. That was his beloved love. That was his deity, by which he entered into the world of the sword. All right. In connection with that, there could be another question by Ashwini. What is that question? Or what is the other Socratic question in connection with this? In a real, there could be a real, much more real doubt. What is that? No, not clear. And that's a different question. That's a different question. We will come to that later. But this is the most opportune moment for you to ask another significant Socratic question. What is that? That is very relevant to this context of discussing about the bamboo sword. Can anybody say that?
Master, can I try?
Yeah.
I was wondering if he took the bamboo sword along with him when he left the monastery, or had he hidden it there and took it out to practice?
That's a good question. But of course, what do you think?
Maybe he had hidden it there and not taken it along. And now he
Of
took it
course,
out.
of course, of course.
Now he took it out, and
Yeah.
by taking it out and practicing, he went back to his days of learning, and that spirit helped him.
Yeah.
This
That
is the
by which he could rediscover,
Yeah,
he could begin the entire new approach, begin a learner
oh,
rather than taking his
correct.
available things for granted, of course.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, another Socratic question in this context, what is that? An obvious, it must be very obvious.
Why didn't he use an iron sword to practice? Since it is a major fight.
No,
No.
not that.
this is a sword that carried his spirit.
No. In this context, another Socratic question. Not about this.
Does the sword determine whether you are a winner or not?
No. That is a different philosophical question. Another question possible to the details of the parable. Okay, I will give you a clue. It is something connected with the observation of Vinay. What was the observation of Vinay? That he himself made the bamboo sword.
Yeah.
Yeah. In that context, can you think of another Socratic question?
So why didn't he practice with Coison himself?
Oh, you unthinkable. So no.
Okay. I mean,
No.
otherwise just
I appreciate your
get.
freedom. And that will come later. We will come to that later. No.
Right.
That is not possible. What do you think about Kyosan? No.
Not just. Yeah. Okay, sir. Okay.
No. That we will consider. No. We laughed at. Don't worry about our laugh. When you make a so-called foolish question, let them laugh. No problem. All right. Don't feel bad about it. Anyway, another question very relevant here. Very relevant and very easily askable. That is connected with, I am giving you a very significant and almost a direct clue as far as I look at it. Vinay said the bamboo sword was made by him. And he himself said why he made himself the bamboo sword. In connection with that, what is another Socratic question possible here?
Why did he choose bamboo?
That was the regular practice, regular custom in the monasteries. Because initially they will not be allowed to use the sword because if somebody makes a mistake, it would be very fatal.
The master.
Come on,
Okay.
Mamai, what are you waiting for? If you
yeah,
have a
sir.
question, you say that.
Okay, the
If you
master could have.
wait,
Okay.
if you have a question, you say that. Why you are always monitoring whether somebody else is talking, whether somebody else was it? When you get an opportunity, you talk it out.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, the master Kyosen could have asked him about the bamboo sword, and if it had a problem, he could have corrected it. If the sword had a problem.
Sir,
No. You are answering to what? You are talking what? I mean, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
What
Master Kyosen might have seen him practicing with the bamboo sword now.
When now? Okay,
Now.
all right, okay.
So he did not ask any questions about it.
All right, okay.
why didn't he give him an iron sword then?
Wait. Now you are making an observation, or you are making a statement, or you are making a question.
I'm making a question that why he didn't ask the cook about the bamboo sword.
That you don't have to say that. Then you can say many other questions possible.
Okay.
But I appreciate that, okay? Because the contest of bamboo sword is made, you can say that. But those kind of ordinary questions, samurai will not ask a man. No. All right, come on. What Nitya wanted to say?
So now he's preparing for the duel. So, and it's no more in a secrecy. So why didn't Kyosen give him a proper iron sword to practice? Or he would have
So
asked for
all
an
right.
iron sword or something?
So what do you think right now he is doing the practice under the supervision of Kyosen? Do you think so?
No. He was
Not at
still
all.
doing it. No.
Kyosen, even if he would not have the daring to ask it, first of all, of course, never.
Mm.
Of course not. Secondly, by chance, if he asked, Kyosen would cut his head, for example. Thirdly, let us assume, even if he asked Kyosen, will not be available now. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
You practice it, you go and go to death, what's all. No. He practiced it alone. That is not the Socratic question. That is not the Socratic question. It's a Socratic question, meaning it's a totally different, it is likely to be in a different dimension, but it is related to the context of the concepts we are using in the current latest discussion. That's again another clue. And the major clue is it is connected with what Vinay mentioned, that the bamboo sword was made by him. Now you say, I have given you an ultimate clue. If you don't get it, it is minus 100 marks. Okay.
Sir,
All right. Yeah.
so is it the cook who gave the spirit to the sword? Is that the question?
That's all very good questions, but not that's all beyond the spirit of Socratic questions. That's all philosophical questions, Ashwati. That we can go. You understand? That's all philosophical, or that's all beautiful interpretations we can make for an exercise on analytic interpretation, no doubt. But here we are more about Socratic questioning. Socratic questionings are all straight to the referent, to comprehend the referent and its realities.
Um,
Veena, you don't get any clue? In this
I
contest,
didn't.
I am
I'm not
giving you
getting a
the.
question. Not getting a question, but I think it creates it. Like you asked about the memory of the song invokes anything in you. It creates memory in his mind about the first days of his learning the art of the sword.
Yeah, and it brings him that humbleness and a
Yes.
revised approach. Agreed. That's all. We have stopped. We have changed the question, Veena. Veena here is, can you find out another missing link, a significant missing link? If I use that as a clue.
I have an observation. I'm not sure if it's a question. Can I say?
Yeah, why not? Proceed.
Yeah. So I'm thinking the cook made the bamboo sword himself, and his attention to the sword would have helped him make it in the first place, and that was the first step of his learning.
Hmm.
Because he wouldn't have made a crude bamboo sword; he would have made a good one for practice.
Oh,
And
obviously.
if he had to make a good one, how much attention he would have paid to the sword to recreate it in our bamboo.
Yeah, okay.
And he made the finest bamboo sword with which he practiced.
Yeah.
And with which he learned.
Yeah. These are all interpretations again of the same question and same point only, around the same point. I want
Yes.
a shift, a totally different question.
Mm.
That I insist because that question must be possible in the given context about the sword.
Mm.
What is that? What do you think? Will anyone is likely to get the question?
The master would have seen the sword.
No, that is no, not that.
How did he make the sword without any actual reference in hand.
Who is talking? Ashwini.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. It's a good question. But that you can, that of course, yeah, that you can assume perhaps, you can observe it and maybe you can take and feel the sort of a disciple. But that's a question. That is partly a Socratic question. Why it's a Socratic question? Because we see in the affair that the so-called cook made a bamboo sword, and it must be really almost a replica, a duplication of the properties of the sword. Then only practicing with it is meaningful. So how could he make such a sword? Yes, that's a Socratic question. All right. Another significant, much more significant Socratic question is possible here. That also I insist. We can come to this question maybe sometime later. Some of you may come, perhaps. But here is the opportunity for that. When you have come closer to that Socratic question, why don't you see it? That is my point. That's very important. I told you the other day, sometime back, the so-called seeing Satori, so-called glorified, misinterpreted state of the so-called bullshit enlightenment, everyone goes through that gap, at least averages 5 to 9 times most of the days. But it is not located because there is no sensitivity. You're going around and near it most of the time. I am very sure. Because I know that. That's why I'm very sure. That you don't see because you see only what is relevant to you, what is trained to you. Because the bamboo sword was mentioned there in the contest, which Ashwini pointed out, you are all thinking about the bamboo sword. And you are talking that bamboo sword would trigger the memory, it would trigger that original humbleness and the readiness to relearn and relook at every point and so on and so forth. That whole discussion happened because of that question, and that question can be asked because of the context of that being mentioned in the parable. Okay, that's good. And if Socratic questioning, not because we want to do Socratic questioning. This question you must ask not because you want to get a clue about Socratic questioning. But that question is really possible if you creatively analyze the parable itself.
Did Shogun also create his own sword?
That is normally, if you do not know the background, Anuradha, in all practices, it is with a bamboo sword only. Like in Mridangam, nobody begins with the Mridangam. And similarly in Chanda, nobody begins straight with Chanda. There is a kind of a wood piece upon which they would beat. Because, no. Similarly, yeah, it is 10 o'clock, only 30 minutes. Already. And again, I tell you, Vinay, it is in connection with what you said in the contest of making the bamboo sword.
So why don't he go to someone else to make a iron sword?
No,
No.
not clear.
He would have already had an iron sword because he was going for duels to
Yeah, no. You're again, what Nitya said is a very, what you call, I would say, sad example of mistaking. A sad example of mistaking or not looking at the horse through the hole. It is a sad example of blinking the eyes exactly when the horse is passing. Oh, time is running out. Oh, Nitya and all of you.
Why did he not buy a sword?
Oh, somewhat closer. If it is so difficult even to get a bamboo sword made by somebody else because of the possible suspicion, how could he get the real sword when he wanted to go and he could not defeat the other samurais in the province by bamboo sword? He had a sword. Where did he get that sword? Even if a
Beautiful, sir.
bamboo sword is made in secrecy, of course, he could. A parable says that he went around and killed at least 5, 6, 7 samurais minimum. Possible. That must be with a real sword. If a bamboo sword is so difficult, how could he get a real sword to go out in the nearby provinces and fight with the south? That was the obvious question. See, Nitya had come closer to that, Anuradha had come closer to that, to an extent Vinay had come closer to that, but still did not strike them. It even about a bamboo sword, Vinay had a good point. And why even Vinay could not see that? That is my question. This is the evidence which I told you. You may be going near, you may be sometimes looking through the hole, and when exactly the horse passes, you are blinking. Similarly, Ramesh also was talking about distance. Why? I was wondering why he talked about distance. There is a significance about distance, but he said something else. Now let us do some real Socratic